Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for coming to the Lunch and Learn today. I know we changed the date. Something came up internal that we had to shift, so I appreciate you guys switching that around for us, and I apologize for any inconvenience there. So let's give any other attendees another minute to join, and then we'll pass it over to Jen to talk about common system errors. All right, why don't we get started? So again, thank you guys for attending today. We're going to be going over common system errors within ePOS and a little bit into Thriversa. So Jen, if you want to get the ball rolling, we can get started.
Thank you, Christina, for that introduction. Like Christina said, we're going to really focus on some common errors that we get a lot of calls about on our help desk, focusing on the front end, and then some back end error messages, and just kind of going over some easy ways you can fix them, or just so you know what to do if the errors come up. So I'm going to start with the point of sale. We're going to look at the point of sale, some common issues, some common errors that we see coming up, and then we'll just go back into the back a little bit and then move into like urgent messages, and just kind of know when you should call the help desk and if you want to try to fix it yourself. But when you start, there's some urgent messages that are not quite needing assistance right away or are not really urgent, and some that you should be calling in about. So we'll kind of go in that order. So I'm going to start off with the point of sale. So this is our V3 point of sale. I'm just putting this up here for now. We are moving towards ePOS. That's actually going to be on our next webinar. We're going to go over ePOS, but a lot more people are familiar with this screen. So I'm just going to use this screen to show the error messages. So there's actually two that I wanted to bring up in here that we do have called in quite a bit. The first one is looking at this screen. This is the cashier login screen. You can see that the date is blinking red up here. This means that the date is not matching the system date. So today is actually the 27th, and it's showing that the transaction date is on the 26th. There are some easy solutions to fixing this. The easiest one is generally just rebooting the register. That will actually usually get this to sync up. Sometimes it means that SMS started before the task ran that updates the date, or SMS never restarted last night. The registers are supposed to reboot nightly, so that way it all gets refreshed, but sometimes things happen that they don't get rebooted. So that's usually a really easy way to get this to go away. It is important that you make sure that you're paying attention if you see this date flashing in red, because what's going to happen is that if your cashier signs on, all your transactions are going to write to the blinking red date. So that means any transactions are taking today will actually be showing up on yesterday's sales. And that means our balancing will be showing up on yesterday's sales. So it's pretty important that if you see this, they try to make it obvious it's blinking red, that you're going to want to try to fix that. Like I said, easy fix is usually to reboot the register. If that doesn't fix it, then that's when you can always call into our help desk. But 9 times out of 10, they'll just be restarting the programs, restarting SMS, and then maybe finding out why the register didn't reboot. The other error message is not so much in message, but you can see that it's in red. So I happen to have two different WIC programs running on my lab here. So I have Vermont and New York. And you can see that New York, the approved item list is in red. If your approved item list is not showing the current date, and if it's showing in red, so I have them both in here so you can see the difference. It should be showing like Vermont, showing today's date. It's yellow. That means it's got the latest information. If it's showing in red and it's got a date in the past, mine hasn't updated since October of 2022. That's pretty old. The states are constantly updating what they approve for WIC. So there is a task that runs nightly that downloads what we call an APL. It's the approved product list. that pulls nightly from the state. They update it as they get new items at it, as they take items that don't qualify for WIC anymore, or maybe it qualifies for a different part of WIC. So it was like a milk product, and now it's a dairy product, something like that. They may have changed it and it only takes away one of their benefits. So they are very frequently updating those. So they upload it nightly and we download it nightly. There's an automatic task that runs in the system that does that for you. If you see this in red, this should be something that if you notice the next day it's still in red and it's really not updating, you want to make sure that you are trying to keep your system up to date, so that way you'll get reimbursed from the state for all the items that they're purchasing with WIC. If you have an old APL file, you're taking transactions and sending it up there, and then they realize, you know, we took this item off WIC like 2 years ago. Why is it still showing? Why are you still sending this to me and trying to get paid for it? So you want to make sure that that's up to date. It is something you would have to call into the help desk. We'll check the task, find out what's going on, why it's not running. I usually say the first day, sometimes things happen, you know, like 1 day, 2 days, you see it's still red, and then after that, that's probably when you should call, because it may just clear up on its own. So I'm going to go ahead and log into the selling screen now and go over a few other messages. One that we get actually quite frequently is that items will not be on file. So you have a item that gets rung up at the register and it comes up not on file. So if it's not at all in your system, it's pretty simple how it will show up. You'll just go ahead and scan in the item, and oh, I used a coupon. Sorry about that. But you'll go ahead and type in an item or ring in the item, and it says the item is not found. That means an item record doesn't exist at all for this item. It seems pretty clear cut, but there is different messages that you can get with items that just are not as, like the item doesn't exist at all. Sometimes it's just missing data. The system does try to tell you what data that it's missing. So if you perhaps have an item that's assigned to a subdepartment, or that doesn't exist, or subdepartment, no subdepartment at all, it won't ring up the item and it's going to tell you that. It's pretty clear cut. So just so you can see this one right here, this item, I don't have a subdepartment assigned to this. So it's not that the item doesn't exist, it's that it's missing data, and it's trying to tell you what data is missing. So it won't ring up the item without a subdepartment. The other one that comes up pretty commonly is that price, there's no price to an item. So if you put in an item and it says that there's no price, it comes up, it's worded a little differently. So it says price level not found. This means that there's no price to this item. Either there's no price at all or it's a $0 price. The system assumes that if the $0 price, that means that there's a problem. You shouldn't be selling something for $0. You can sell something, you have to specify a flag on the item, but this is telling you this item was not specified to have a $0 price and or it has no price at all, so I'm not going to sell this item. So you know what you have to go and correct. So that's always going to be item maintenance whenever you see any of these error messages, but it's pointing you in the direction what item maintenance must be done. While I'm doing this, you can see I have a message that came up here. It says red, it says server off. This generally means, now this is a call that our help desk gets very frequently. So this generally means when you see server off, the server and the lanes are in constant communication. The servers are constantly sending down files, price changes, operator changes, customer changes, whatever changes you're making on the server and deploying down, it's constantly sending files down to the lane. The lane is constantly creating files, transaction files. As the cashier does stuff on the lane, it's creating little transaction files that it sends back up to the server. When you see server off, this means it's not communicating one way or the other with the server. So either files are stuck coming down from the server and it can see that they're stuck, or files are stuck going up from the lane up to the server. So these files are not flowing like they should. It does take a few seconds for these files to get picked up, so you'll see this flash on and off sometimes. That's perfectly normal. It's just seeing that the files are sitting there for a few seconds and then the server grabs them and they go away and the message goes away. So if you're seeing it just come on and off, it could just mean that the server's busy doing something, so it's taking a few extra seconds for it to grab those files. So it's not something to be concerned about unless it's showing up like that a lot. If you have it stuck kind of like what I have up here right now where it's up, the way that the server and the lanes communicate is with a service in the background. that you can either, like, you're always welcome to call our help desk, don't get me wrong, but if you're just wanting to try to get a quicker solution, usually the fastest way to do this is to either restart the service on the back, so on the server, on your main server, or you can reboot the server. The common IT thing is, turn it off and back on, but this actually will restart the service if the service wasn't running or if it was frozen. And if you're not familiar with computers and you don't want to go into services, so I'm just going to pull over my services screen right here. So you can see this is my service, so it should be the SMS HTTPS, and it is not running right now. I did that on purpose, so that way I would get the message. So on my server, it's not running, so it's not picking up the file. So again, if you're comfortable with computers a little bit and you know how to get into the services, you can go through the control panel, go into services and find it. If it's not running, you can then easily right-click or click up here and start the service, and that will fix it. Or if you're not comfortable, you just want to try to fix it yourself, you can reboot the main back office server, and it will do the same thing. It will restart the service. And then again, if you try these things and it doesn't work, it could be a few other things, don't get me wrong. This is just a common issue. This is commonly why it's going to show up. It will take a few seconds, as you can see, and then that message will go away now that that service is running. The files are getting picked up. So that's just like, it's a very common call we get. We have server offline on all our lanes. Why server offline? First thing I always go and I do is check to see if that service is running. 9 times out of 10, that's the problem, especially if it's all the lanes doing that. Another one that we get, and it's a little hard for me to duplicate that, is that if you're taking your credit card payments and your bank payments, so you have a customer swipe their debit card, credit card, EBT card, WIC card, whatever card, income, OTC, and they're using that card for payment and you get bank offline. So bank offline is going to mean usually one of two things. Like I said, I don't have a credit card to use here, but just it would come up here in red and it says bank offline. It means maybe there's a problem on the bank side. Processors do go down occasionally. It doesn't happen super often, but it does happen that, WorldPay or Fiserv are two main ones that we service. They have their problems. They'll go down for like a couple minutes or an hour or so sometimes. That could be what the issue is. The other issue is your internet could be down. So if you're getting bank offline on all your lanes, I would go back into my back office workstation, my back office server, and see if the internet's up. You can go out to Google, you can go out to Yahoo, you can get out to the internet. That means that communication is good, and that means that potentially this could be that the bank is actually having an issue on their end. So that's when I would say if you can get out, you can do that troubleshooting step. If you can't get out to the internet, you could then call your internet service provider, troubleshoot it from that perspective. But if you are able to get out to your internet, then that could be when you call in. You could call into our help desk, or you could call your processor and see if there's an issue on their side. So that's generally, like I said, it's usually not a problem with the system itself. It's usually a problem with the communication, either communicating out via the internet or it's the communication with the bank itself and they're having problem accepting communication. There is a error message that we do get occasionally with customers if you're doing a frequent shopper program, and you'll get shopper level not found or risk level not found. So what that usually means is that when you're doing your frequent shopper program, you enter in your customer number, scan, swipe, phone number, whatever it may be. They have to have a shopper level or risk level associated with them. If they don't, it's going to give an error message. They have actually made this pretty hard for you to make a customer without putting a customer level in anymore. So I'm just going to show you how it would happen on the front end. I'm going to try to create a new customer, so I would just go into customer maintenance, and we'll just go ahead and make a new customer. And it's going to prompt to create. So when you create the customer, you hit OK, and it's automatically right here assigning me to a risk level and a shopper level. If you try to change that, it actually won't let you. It'll actually say no. It gives you a little bit of a ding. So if the cashier is trying to give it an invalid or get rid of a customer level, it's actually quite difficult to do that anymore. And the same on the back side, if you're doing this on vice versa or in the older V3 module, it actually will give you an error message. You can't even leave the customer record without adding a shopper level and risk level. So they have tried to make this very difficult to do. But basically, it used to, you know, you used to be able to create a customer. If you forgot this, the customer was unable to be used because the customer level is what dictates what discounts and deals the customer gets, points programs are assigned to, and the risk level is if they're able to do house credit or if they're able to do checks. So they have made this very difficult to do, but it does come up sometimes in some slightly older versions. So just you can see, it has actually made it quite difficult for you to get it to I'm just going to put in a bad shopper level. It doesn't exist in my system. So I'm trying to put in shopper level 8. It doesn't exist, and it will not let you do that. It will forcibly put you in a shopper level that exists. So that has kind of gone away. But just so you can see how you can fix that. If that does come up, you can go into the maintenance screen and just put them into the correct shopper level. And you can see right there, I was trying to put in a shopper level that didn't exist, and it was giving me this error in the background when it was pinging. So just kind of an old error message that we see sometimes that has really been taken care of in newer versions. The last message I got, the last error message that I wanted to go over in the point of sale, like I said, I did go over this with our help desk just to get the common ones, is that you get it's over limit error sometimes. So I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to log out. Let me just go ahead and cancel this sale because I'm logged in as a manager, so I could show you all these error messages. I'm actually going to log out and log in as an operator, so that way you can kind of see a little bit better. So what this usually is that you will have like a cashier logged in, and they'll get like a limit error. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to do like an open ring to the good old grocery sub-department because that's always a common one that happens. So they'll try to do like an open ring. Maybe an item didn't bring up properly, so they're just trying to type it in to get the cashier out, and they get this over limit error. So you can set limits for the cashiers. It seems like this is self-explanatory, but people do call in about it quite frequently that there's a limit on how high of an open ring that they can do, or there's a limit on whatever functionality. This can be on, if they're trying to void an item, you can set dollar amounts on how high of a value you can void items or void the transaction. And it will give you this error message saying that there is a limit set on what you're trying to do, and you don't have permission to do this. And this is actually telling me right here, over limit error 5. So that's not a code, that's actually the limit. That's the limit that I set on the sub-department. I can do $5. I could do an open ring for up to $5 as a level 2 cashier. So it's just kind of so you can see that. That way you know when you're reading this error message, oh, well, you're logged in as a cashier level. You just don't have permission to do this. Your limit's $5. You can't do an open ring of $10. So that way, instead of trying to figure out, it's giving you the information right there. And you can then either have a manager log in and do the open ring, or you can, you know, have the cashier do and make the item ring up, whatever it is that they're trying to do. So that way you can continue and get the customer out of the store. So always try to get the customer out as quickly as possible. So that was what I wanted to go over with the point of sale. The other thing that I wanted to show kind of ties in with SMS. I know we're moving towards Thriversa, but this is a common call that we get when people are doing SMS. So I wanted to show this. It was one of the highest ones that I got. So I'm just going to go back to our back office with SMS. Let me go ahead and log out though, and then log in with a high enough level here. So balancing is a big part of what people do in SMS. So if you're coming in and you're doing balancing, an error message or an error that we have reported quite frequently is they're going to do balancing. So I'm going to go into my balancing module, operators with drawers, and they come in here and they do a pickup. So I'm just going to do a pickup on my cashier, and I just do like a $5 pickup, complete. And when I look at that cashier, that $5 pickup did not go through. So I'm going to go ahead and do that pickup again. So why did it not go through? So they do the $5 pickup again, and they complete it. Oops, I didn't. That was yeah. What's going on? So you'll have this appear in a few different ways. You'll get an error message, last transaction not processed. You'll get an error message of the fact that this has the last thing wasn't submitted. Sometimes it just goes through again, and you get no error message. And like I just waited a few seconds, but if I go ahead and refresh, that cashier is still not showing either of those two pickups. A lot of times what happens is people will continually put the same pickup in. They'll keep doing it over and over again. And then what happens is all those pickups will go through all at once. This is actually very similar to the error message where I just showed you, which is server offline. It's usually indicative of if you're on a back office workstation and you're doing this, there's a file stuck moving between the back office workstation and the main server. That file, that sometimes Windows puts things called archive bits and those files don't process, that would cause this issue. The other thing that would cause this issue is the same thing that would cause the issue with the server offline where the service isn't running. So again, I did go back here and I turned off my service. So again, if you're getting this where you're saying I'm on one of my workstations and my pickups aren't going through, I'm getting an error message about last transaction not being processed, I'm getting these error messages about things not being submitted, one of those things happening, very simple fix is to go to back office server and make sure the service is running again, or you can reboot the server. The reason why I'm showing you this in our old V3 SMS as opposed to Thriversa is this won't happen in Thriversa anymore. Specifically the idea where the service isn't running, and this happening, because when the service isn't running, you actually can't access Thriversa. So you'll go to this web page cannot be displayed when you go to log in. You'll not be able to do a pickup. So this actually is something, again, like I said, if you're transitioning to doing everything in Thriversa, this error message will actually stop showing up. This will stop for you. So it's kind of, like I said, a lot of our customers are still on the older version. So I just wanted to show it happening in there and show you that what you can do to fix it, which again, reboot the server, restart the service if it's not running, if you're comfortable with that. And then again, you can always call into the help desk if it's that one of those two things doesn't fix it, because it could be something else going on. But if you're moving and transitioning to using Thriversa more, then you don't have to worry about these error messages not happening, because if you are trying to get into Thriversa when the service isn't running, which was one of the error messages I was going to go to with Thriversa, is this won't occur anymore. So as you can see, my service isn't running, and I just spin when I try to, and I get this website cannot be reached when I'm trying to get into Thriversa. If you are running this at all, if you're getting this error message ever when you're trying to get into Thriversa, it is always going to be one of two things. The service isn't running on the back office server, or your machine can't see the back office server. You're not on the same network as the back office server, so when you're browsing across the network, you can't see it. That's the two reasons you will get this error message when you're trying to get into Thriversa. Just so you can see that the site can't be reached, local hosts refuse to connect. Your local host is your server. So if you're trying to connect your server when you're using Thriversa. So if you're getting this error message when you're trying to get in there, first thing I would do is go to the back office server and see if that service is running. Second thing, if that is running, I would check to make sure that the computer I'm trying to use to access Thriversa is on the same network as the server, because it needs to be on that same internal network as the server to be able to access that. There is ways you can access it outside with a VPN, something like that with Thriversa, but if you don't have that set up, you can only access it when you're inside that network. Now, if you do have one of those VPNs set up and you're able to access outside the network, then 100% is going to be likely the service isn't running, or a firewall got turned on the server. That's about it. So we'll go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and start this. That way I can access Thriversa, and then I'll just get into the last couple things I wanted to get over, which is just some common urgent messages you may be seeing, and if and when you might want to have us call into our help desk. So here we go. So now that the service is running, I should be able to access it. See, are fixed. So if you're going through and looking at your urgent messages, if that's ever something that you've been looking at, if you're having some issues with your system and you're just wanting to check and see some things yourself before you go ahead and call us, in Thriversa you can access this right here with the little bell icon. So you go up to the little bell icon. This will show you your urgent messages, and then you can come down here and get more details by viewing urgent message. So some of the common ones that you may see If you ever see any error message, I'm just going to kind of highlight a few of them. If you ever see an error message like this, license error, system may stop working, you ever see that being logged as an urgent message, you should 100% be calling the help desk, finding out what's going on. That means that there's an issue with your SMS licensing. If you've been offline, like something happened, you've lost internet connection, or you had a couple registers offline and you had remodeling being done, or something just happened, you lost power to the store, and you see these error messages, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, you can always call the help desk and have them double check, but you can just clear these out and make sure it doesn't come back, because you're going to have these error messages when it can't see the licensing, because it goes out and double checks that licensing on the cloud. So you may get them when you're offline. After you get back online, you can clear them out and make sure they don't come back. But if you've had nothing going on in your system and you're seeing this, I would probably pick up the phone and call the help desk to find out what's going on. Another one that we see is that I would recommend that you call into the help desk is like there's this maintenance/purge schedule. There's scheduled maintenance that runs every night, and there's a purge that runs once a week. So if there's an issue with your maintenance and your database maintenance or your purge, I would, again, be making sure that I call into the help desk, because we are doing backups nightly. We are doing database maintenance to make sure that your SQL database is healthy. It's all scheduled tasks that run in the back, and it's very important that those tasks run, so that will prevent issues. So if you're seeing these messages, especially over and over again, I would definitely call into the help desk. Obviously, one night sometimes is not such a big deal. Sometimes things happen, power outages, so the task didn't run, things like that. But if you're seeing this message once, twice, a few times, I would definitely be picking up the phone, calling, and be like, hey, I just want to have this checked out. There's not a lot that I would say that you would want to, unless you're very computer savvy, you could check out a few settings yourself, but I would be calling the help desk to just have them double check on why these are not running for you. One thing that you can do is if you are doing inventory, that's what the last two, or inventory or customers, these two error messages that you may be getting. The calculation discrepancy. This can be either inventory or customer balances. I'm just going to open this so you can see more detail. So your inventory is not matching. So there's always two inventory numbers, so your calculated inventory and your current inventory. You should always want those numbers to match. If not, then you're going to get this error message. This is like a double check for your system. If you're doing inventory, you want to make sure that you have their current running inventory is currently running. The calculated inventory takes all the transactions that were done through the day at the end of the day. All of the transactions would be negatives, any receivings would be positive, and it's going to re-add all those up, and that's your calculated. So if you have your current running inventory, those two numbers should match. They're kind of a double checking themselves, making sure the system is double checking that the inventory is in balance. If it's not, then you should be, there's a few tools that you can run. There's a difference between calculated and current that you can run. It tells you right here how to get there. You can go into SMS Pro, Tools, Item Performance Check, differences between calculated and current inventory, or you can go into eSuite, Manage, Auditing, Resolution, difference between calculated and current inventory item, and you can run those and find out what items are not in balance and go back and fix them. Usually it's just one or two items that get thrown off, and you can fix them. It'll also show up if you have customer balances. It does the same thing with customer balances. So if your balances for your customers are not matching up, it does like a kind of running total and a calculated total, then you can do the same thing, and it will give you the tool in order to be able to fix that. The other one is very specifically if you're doing inventory, we see this a lot in stores, is kit or split item with inventory. In previous webinars, I've gone over kits. I think last year, we've gone over what a kit is and what a split item is. You should never have inventory on a kit. The kit should always have the inventory in the individual items. I'm just going to double click on this. And the other one is a split item. So if you're using the split item where you're doing like a carton of cigarettes that you split into packs of cigarettes, you should always be keeping inventory on the lowest one, so on the pack of cigarettes, not on the carton, so it's split code in there. So you should never have inventory on that. If it's seeing inventory on either those kits or those split codes, it's going to throw this error message, and you should check. It's telling you exactly where to go and check this SMS Pro, Tools, Validity Check, Kit, or you can check it in eSuite, Item, Validity Check, Kit, and Split Validation. So that way you can find out why these items have, inventory because they shouldn't. And then you may have to go and do inventory adjustments on the items that should have the inventory calculated. So just like I said, a couple urgent messages that you can kind of check yourself would be these two, these important ones that are listed as important. With the calculation discrepancy and kit or split item with inventory. And then just other ones, like I said, these ones I kind of am highlighting that something is going on with the maintenance or purge schedule. You should call into the help desk to find out why those are not running, or your license error 100% you should be calling in and to the help desk and find out what's going on. Unless, like I said, something went on in the store, it will not hurt. Even if you have the power outage at your store, you see this error message come up, just have the help desk call the help desk, make sure that they're seeing the licensing. That is important. It needs to see it every 14 days. Or your system, like it'll start giving you a little countdown on the system, and then you definitely don't want that happening. So those are just some of the ones I wanted to highlight with urgent messages. And then, like I said, with the back office, with the last transaction not processed, with the balancing, and then some of the common POS error messages we get calls about. So that being said, that was what I wanted to go over. Christina, do we have any questions coming?
We did not. I can give everybody a second. If anybody does have anything, just throw it in the question chat.
If you think of any error messages too that you see commonly that you want to email about later, that we can always answer those as well.
Yep, nothing's coming in, so I think we're good. If you don't have anything else to go over, Jen.
Yep.
Okay. So thanks everybody for joining this Lunch and Learn webinar. The next webinar is going to be September 25th, and that one's we're going to be going over sales operations. So until then, everybody have a good time, and we will see you in a month.
Thank you.